Thank you for listening to our production of Talking Beyond Trauma. This discussion is made available by the South-Southwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, under a cooperative agreement funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA. The MHTTC's goal is to provide free training, present best practices, and to provide ongoing support and consultation to professionals that serve individuals with mental health challenges. The South-Southwest MHTTC is a project of the Texas Institute for Excellence in Mental Health, housed at the Steve Hicks School of Social Work at the University of Texas at Austin. The South-Southwest region, also known as Region 6, covers the states of Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arkansas, Louisiana, and our tribal communities. The South-Southwest MHTTC is a part of a nationwide network of providers. The MHTTC network uses affirming, respectful, recovery-oriented language in all programs, products, and activities. Today's presentation was prepared for the MHTTC network. The opinions expressed in this presentation are the views of our speakers and do not reflect the official position of the Department of Health and Human Services or SAMHSA. If you'd like more information about this and other MHTTC products in the South-Southwest region, you can find a link in the episode description. This session was pre-recorded. We appreciate your participation and hope the discussion helps your journey.
Trauma, a word that essentially means something bad has occurred. The word and its impact on our lives seem to dominate our literature, research, and is a constant source of discussion in the work of human services. I wanted something different. I wanted to talk about trauma, but in a simple way. For all our talking about the research, all the literature, and all the subsequent models that address trauma, many effective models, I might add, I believe we have missed out on one important reality. Something bad has happened. Someone's life has been impacted, in some cases for generations. So what do we do about it? Because we have to do something about it. Not to argue about it, fix it, not to assign a value to it, but we know bad things are all around us, and each of us identifies with those bad experiences differently. It's important to me not just to discuss trauma, but to talk beyond trauma, to share insights from one another on wellness, build our skills, broaden our understanding of how trauma works in our bodies, in our communities, in our service delivery, to draw on the expertise of all those who are experiencing the effects of bad things that happen, as well as those that dedicate their lives to helping them get better. I want to have real conversations on the matter. Yes, I want to be educated, not just given a thesis on trauma. I want to hear the theories, but I'm more concerned with practice. People are hurting now. They need help, not theories. I want to create a learning space where any member of my community, your community, could listen to this program and take something away that helps in their personal journey of dealing with bad things, recovering from those experiences, living well, and promoting wellness for others. Essentially, to be better humans. That's what we do on this program. We address real hurt with real people, having real talk. Welcome to Talking Beyond Trauma. In this episode, we're speaking with Dr. Jacob Hom. Dr. Hom is the director of the Center for Child Trauma and Resilience and clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. He's a subject matter expert in trauma and providing trauma-related services. He also lends his talents to leaders within organizations using trauma-informed interventions with clients and employees alike. Let's get into that conversation.
We're here with Dr. Jacob Hom. We're very encouraged to have him here with us today. We're going to be talking about trauma and trauma-informed organizations, how they're formed, what are some of the things that get in the way of forming them. We're going to talk a little bit about trust and fear, I have listened to your work for a while, and I'm really glad that you're a part of this MHTTC project.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is an honor.
Well, reciprocally. I actually became interested in your work and your approach to trauma-informed care by researching a workshop that I was presenting and bumped into probably one of the more straightforward pieces of information. It was comprehensive, and at the same time, it's like I could teach anybody trauma-informed care with this. And so I'm really glad to have a conversation with you that is straightforward about trauma. Before we go down that road, though, you have a pretty extensive history with trauma. Can you tell us a little bit about what led you, with all of your clinical background, why trauma?
I think I am not unlike most of us. If you look around, any of us within 3 generations or 1 or 2 family members has experienced some kind of trauma on a collective level, whether that be some kind of war. For me, it was Korean War and Japanese occupation. But for other people, it could be World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, slavery, Holocaust. There's so much trauma. And I find that the ripple effect of trauma lasts for generations. And each generation has to do a little bit to move the needle towards recovery and healing. It just feels like a universal issue that we're all growing from. And then professionally, I guess, it's hard to talk about because I've been writing a book about it. And so I'm trying to figure out how to weave in my personal narrative and professional narrative into the lessons I've learned from doing trauma work for nearly 20 years. Trauma has always been my favorite diagnosis. It's the only one that really wasn't as pathologizing. It actually said in the diagnostic criteria that something happened to you for you to be acting this way. No other diagnosis acknowledges that, except for maybe grief and adjustment disorder. But otherwise, it's the only diagnosis that we use that actually acknowledges that bad things can make people act in all kinds of funny ways. And that felt so much more humanizing than all the other disorders that were classified. I've just been dedicating my life to trying to figure out how to actually help people recover from trauma. I guess I look at it more in terms of just like suffering, period. Like I don't necessarily stay close to the scientific definition of what trauma is. I look at it as a spectrum of things that can happen and a spectrum of ways that you can respond. I guess we can talk about what it really means, but it's really about the fact that it's all too human to have experienced trauma, and we're all needing to learn how to overcome it and manage the effects of it. So it's universally humanizing and bonding for all of us to be talking about trauma.
I really appreciate that it's universally involved. So many times you hear it seems like it's one set of service recipients. It's children in foster care, it's the homeless, it's the veteran. Oddly enough, that word trauma has been used to stigmatize instead of really embracing the reality that we're all experiencing it in some ways. And it's encouraging to hear a clinician say out loud that this is a universal experience.
It's the human condition from which we all need to resolve life. It's like the first noble truth in Buddhism, which is that life is suffering. I think we can extend it to saying life has a lot of trauma.
Let's talk a little bit about you for a moment. 2 decades later, you currently do this work. You're a director of a trauma center. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
The Center for Child Trauma and Resilience is the center that I run, and it's located in the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City. The gist of what we do is really trying to figure out ways to improve trauma practices for children, adolescents, and families, and adults too. We're federally funded and locally funded. We have funding through SAMHSA in 2 SAMHSA grants, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and then the Trauma and Substance Use for Adolescents funding streams through SAMHSA. We also get money through the DA's office in Manhattan to help create trauma-informed programs for people who are justice involved, people who are usually just seen as criminals and othered as criminals.
Right.
And we're trying to create trauma services for people who have experienced a lot of trauma, and they're not necessarily seen in their humanity and in their suffering. I guess that's the gist of what we do. Service programs, really just committed to understanding exactly what it takes to actually help someone heal. And like the other thing that I pride myself on is what you were talking about with the video that you came across. I throw away everything. I throw away anything I've learned if it doesn't work in the room. And I start from scratch. I start with what's in front of me. And I think that's what our conversation is going to be like today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
There is so much discussion of trauma in our society, it can be difficult to make sense of what it truly means, how we identify it, and moreover, what we do about it. Trauma plays a significant role in our ability to have successful, healthy lives. It has effects on every area of our well-being. Let's get back to our conversation with Dr. Ham.
It's a noble piece of work that you're doing, and we'll be talking to people who are doing that same type of noble work, often trying to figure this whole thing out. It's complex. It's not complicated when we talk about trauma. There's no quick fixes. As you said, you jettison just as much as you take in. Maybe we should start our conversation this afternoon with just operationalizing our term, so to speak. Let's just call it what it is and define it. Not to the academics, to the person on the road. How do you explain this to a person on the city streets of New York? I was one of those individuals on the city streets of New York. And if you walked up to me and started using some of this language that gets used around trauma, you would probably get the wrong side of my energy. I think it scares folks to talk about trauma. I think it's, as you said before, othering. So many folks have had this label placed upon them that they didn't fully even understand what it was that was being placed upon them, even by helping professionals, even in the good energy of trying to help. People didn't understand what trauma really was. So how would you define it?
Okay, let me try to visualize someone comes up to me and they've had a lot of trauma. They've normalized it because this is just the way they grew up. I actually get this a lot with my patients where they don't think that anything that bad happened to them and they probably deserved what happened to them. And then you have to kind of convince them that it wasn't right what happened to them. The first thing to realize is that trauma is it's something bad that happens to you. And in the academic lingo, they talk about things that are horrifying or life-threatening. In the complex trauma world, which is the world that I live in, complex trauma is really like trauma that happens over and over again in your lifetime. And it's usually at the hands of someone who's supposed to love and protect you and not hurt you. And that's what becomes so complicated about the impact of that. So for me, in the complex trauma world, it's not something horrifying and life-threatening in so much as it's a violation of love, actually. And a violation of love itself is a horrifying thing to experience. And I guess we can talk about what all that means. And this is the thing that I'm unpacking in my book. But complex trauma is, it's violence done to the relationship that should be filled with love. Instead of feeling loved and protected, you feel scared, you feel ashamed, you feel like you've done something wrong or don't deserve to be loved, you feel worthless. And from that experience, you would die as an infant or a small child if you lived with that. And so you can't stay in that. That's the life-threatening and horrifying part. And then you come up with all kinds of desperate ways to not be left, to not be found worthless and unlovable. And then that's what causes all of the other responses and adaptations to a traumatic event that people end up feeling ashamed of and out of control about, and they can't forgive themselves for.
I would imagine a number of youth and young adults and people all throughout the lifespan that never shake that shame that you spoke of. They never get to a place where they can have healthy interactions with other people.
The reason why is really complicated again. If you let go of the shame, then you let go of your claim for being loved. See, the perverse thing that happens with with complex trauma is that the person who's supposed to love you is hurting you and making you feel like you don't deserve anything. And the only way that you can kind of like square that circle, or whatever that phrase is that you have to take on that shame. You have to take on their energy and say, please don't leave me. I will be as worthless and unlovable as you say I am. But please, whatever it takes, don't leave. And so letting go of that shame is like letting go of this need for love from the person that you cannot ever quit.
Connecting to other people helps us deal with traumatic situations. It also helps us recover from trauma. Relating to others can be hard to do in the most intimate of settings. Our families, communities, our schools, places of worship, all require us to develop trust with others. Today, we're talking about trust and what happens in cases when there is no trust developed based on traumatic events. Are we truly helping our communities if we don't have trusting relationships with those we serve?
The idea of connecting to others then has to be impacted. Formally, we talk about attachment. I know you do an incredible amount of work, an incredible body of work of just breaking that down and trying to help people understand what that might feel like from an infant's point of view, or what that might feel like from a young child's point of view as they go through lifespan and growth. The impact on trust, though, has to be something that it almost seems like everybody who's ever been a human service provider was always going after the wrong thing. They're going after outcomes. In my case, making sure youth and young adults were self-sufficient when I should have been working on, do they feel connected, loved, and worthwhile?
One of my favorite anecdotes about this was a program in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. We were railing against and raging against outcome-based programming. And one of our favorite measures of outcome was this one participant, after being away from the program for many years, he got arrested for being violent in his house, or I forget where. But he was in the precinct, and he spent his one call on calling that program after years of not being there. That can't be measured. I don't know where you put that on a Likert scale.
Agreed. Is that what makes it elusive and why we're not spending enough time talking about this? Is that why our programs and our programming has lent us a lot of credibility about being service-oriented, when in fact we've missed out that maybe a crucial piece of what we should have been doing was building enough trusting relationship with somebody that they would reach out to us in their time of need, that their dire circumstance would draw them back to the one time in their life, no matter even if it was just once or twice, whether this person was caring, reliable, saw my whole person, opposed to just providing me a service.
And I would add, this is a program that I can reach out to in my darkest moment when I'm most ashamed of myself. When I don't want to reach out to anyone else.
True.
They will still see me and see my need, see past the thing I've done and see my need. And then the question about why programs and administrations do this, I don't fault them for this. I think it's a two-pronged thing. Like, the people who are closest to the work and just trying to help one person need to have faith and open space to like let the person grow as they need to. But then there's sometimes the need to quantify and optimize comes from a good place of really trying to maximize our impact. And other times it comes from a fear-based place of like, we're wasting our money. We're accountable to other people who are going to be mad at us if we don't spend our money well. It's a very subtle shift in states of mind. And it's a dialectical tension that needs to be held. So I don't think that we should only wait for those phone calls and just take those off. I think we should keep striving to figure out a way to quantify or measure outcomes while still being in dialogue with the essence of the work itself and the input of the participants who need this trauma service.
So the input really kind of speaks to the creation of a space that allows for that to occur. And I agree with you wholeheartedly That shaming and blaming aside, I mean, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, yeah, it'd be really great to, hurt people that are already traumatized, already suffering. These folks do incredible work with what they're given in most cases, and they're trying their best. That said, they too are working in environments that are struggling, as you said, with an outcome-based reality to something that, if I'm listening closely to you, is not that easy to quantify. The level of my relationships with certain members of my own family, never mind external professionals, nobody can build an outcome measure around that. What's the art of building the trusting relationship if you're a service provider and working with vulnerable, traumatized humans?
Let's get into that. That's the best way to have this conversation, I think. Before I got on, I was trying to figure out how to anchor our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think that it's best to go from the inside out. And what I mean by that is from the moment out. So we have someone in front of us who is maybe in a traumatized state of mind or in a survival state of mind or something like that. And then the question is, what do we do in that moment? Let's figure out that part out. What's the art of engaging someone who's a little bit in survival brain, doesn't trust, first time they're coming to see you, they think you're just going to be like everyone else who just like cares about their paycheck and is just checking off boxes. Step one would be, is my mind right? Is my heart mind right? Like this connection between my heart and my mind. Am I clear of purpose? Am I present and open to what's about to happen without my own anxieties and fears kind of veiling over my vision? Real trauma-informed care starts with your own self-awareness and your self-care, not just checking yourself, but caring for yourself and making sure that you're in the best state of mind that you can be. And then with that clarity, then you have to see the other person. And then the way you see the other person is where the psychoed piece about trauma comes in. And if I were to teach someone without any training and they had to like see traumatized people the next day, the things that I would teach them is track their energy. Like you were saying already, good and bad energy. We can just use that language if that's what sounds familiar to you. They have to be in the good energy state. And the good energy state is when they're actually paying attention to you, listening to what you have to say, and listening to what they're feeling inside and able to speak from that place. That itself is tremendously difficult. People come in with walls and defenses and shame and mistrust. So that alone is like the end goal to get into the good energy place. The bad energy place would be the fear, mistrust, suspiciousness, or the dissociation even. In my practice, sometimes people come in overly intellectualized. There's so many ways to not be present, or already thinking that you're a threat. So there's the aggressive or the avoidant spectrum of ways to not be present. So you have to know what energy state the other person's in, whether they're in the aggressive, avoidant, or present state. And if they're not in the presence state, then you have to start helping them name where they are and for you to name where they are.
Mm.
Like I had this one guy that I was doing a forensic evaluation for. He had like assaulted a nurse and he was in a psychiatric hospital. And he came in and he looked at me sideways. And I said, "You don't trust me, do you?" "Thank God you don't trust me," I said. "Because who am I? You don't know me. And from what I've read, you've had a hard life. And people have not been trustworthy. So I don't want you to trust me right away. That'd be foolish. All I ask of you is 5 minutes for you to figure out whether or not I'm worth talking to for another 5 minutes. And every 5 minutes, you ask yourself, is this guy worth another 5 minutes? And if I don't earn it, then you leave. I've done my job poorly if I can't earn that every 5 minutes." And so he sat down and he listened to me. And through that, I'm also acknowledging the utility of survival strategies and every way that we learn to adapt because of our histories, acknowledging the utility of those things. I'm not shaming him for that, but still trying to get him to choose, keep having this active ability to choose which way he's going to show up and to keep tracking me. So he has a lot of agency, and he's collaborating with me about what's going to happen in the moment.
That's an incredible amount of content. I want to peel some of that back. So much good stuff was just said, and I don't want it to go unmentioned. First, I want to start with survival and this idea that there's some type of survival need. The fear is kicking something in. What is happening inside when that happens? Without it getting all neuropsych on us, but like, what is the
essence of it?
The essence of what's happening in my head when I feel those feelings?
Yeah. The most important thing is that your brain is going from open, playful, expansive, and learning to a threat detector, a simple black and white threat detector. And it's ready to go off if it needs to protect you or just disappear. Simple black and white thinking. Are you going to hurt me or not? It's really hard to know. If I were talking to someone and I just said that, I'd say, even now, can you slow down and check with your body whether you are open or closed, like threat detecting or curious? And then I'd ask them to like check in with their body about whether they feel anxiety or dissociation, a little bit of tightness or like kind of calm. And even that exercise alone, I'm actually combating the survival brain, because the survival brain also wants to disconnect and dissociate from awareness because it's just in autopilot survival, whereas the presence brain is connected with oneself and connected with the other person and connected with the purpose of the moment.
And so if I'm hearing correctly, your brain's trying to figure out what you should do next. And if you're on an autopilot, then that reaction is a wild card. That's going to be very different for every individual you talk to. So in this case, you had this young gentleman, and I heard a discussion of agency, actually allowing this person to drive. Every 5 minutes, they get to decide whether you stay in the car or leave the car. There's power in that, and it's not normally afforded.
And I would add purpose. The next thing I did was purpose. What are we gonna do in this 5 minutes besides trust me? I'm here to try to help figure out what you need most next. Because I heard that you're in trouble, you might go to Rikers or whatever.
Right.
I'm trying to avoid that by trying to understand you and figure out what you need.
What do you say, doctor, to the individual or individuals who say, that's someone else's job? That's not me. Like, I'm not a clinician. I'm not Dr. Hahn.
Yes.
I don't have LPC at the end of my name. I'm not going in there with this guy.
Okay, so then if that person's job is to do this, but they're just saying that, you never listen to the words, or you never combat the words. We're not debating. You go into the feeling or the intention of that statement. Feelings and intentions, that's all I ever listen for. So when I hear that, I'm hearing, I'm scared, I don't want to do this, don't force me to do this. Those are the feelings and intentions. And so I'd rather that person be able to repeat what they said, but just from the feelings and intentions. I'm scared and I don't want to do this, and I don't want you to make me do this. And you better not make me do this. There's a little bit of threat and fear and a little survival brain getting kicked up too for them.
But ultimately, the survival piece is to eliminate the threat, even if that means having you leave the room and I don't have to feel that pain anymore.
Meaning what?
I don't necessarily want to interact with you as the professional. If I could find some way to make you feel threatened, maybe it'll just go away.
Exactly. But instead, if you get someone to name, oh my God, you're right, I am scared, and I really don't want to do this. Even that naming gives a person a moment to pause and think, do I really not want to do this? Or am I just saying this because I'm scared? What else is my higher purpose in this moment? So the naming part has to be done well and slowly so that it kind of activates this kind of present awareness brain a little bit. Survival brain wants to go fast.
Sounds as if. How do we slow and teach ourselves to slow down. If survival brain, this person is moving fast by default, I as the provider, the caregiver in that moment, the person who wants to assist, even the person on the street that's trying to be helpful, needs to be aware that I too am going for this ride. The moment I step in and engage, I am involved in this in some way. I would think my brain is doing some of the same things this person's brain is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to honor both sides. You don't tell your survival brain to shut up and like stop trying to take the wheel. You say, I need you to look out for me. I need you to like be my Google Maps. I need to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't fight me, like work with me. Keep an eye on this guy for me. If you feel anything suspicious, then let's take the time to both slow down and think, uh-oh, something just came up in me. For some reason, I don't trust you right now, and see how they respond. And if they don't deserve your trust, then you have the right to leave. And so you reassure your survival part, listen, if you need to take over, you can. But for now, let me try to get us as far as possible.
Do you believe that you gained any or garnered any trust with that person that you helped that day?
Oh, we talked for an hour and a half. He told me about what he wants to do in his life and then how bad he felt about what he did. By the end, he was like, when are you coming back?
Let's just pause our conversation right there for a moment. I know, right? Right before we got into the really good stuff. Coming up next on Talking Beyond Trauma, I'm really excited to share with you Dr. Ham's thoughts about trauma-informed workspaces. I hope you'll join us. I want to thank you for listening to our production of Talking Beyond Trauma. We appreciate your participation and hope this discussion helps your journey. If you'd like more information about this and other MHTTC products in the South-Southwest region, check out the link in the description. No production of this size and scope is accomplished without a great team. Heartfelt thanks to our guest, Dr. Jacob Ham, for his willingness, insight, and guidance for leaders. The exchange was value-added and impactful. Special thanks to our fantastic colleagues at Make Every Media for producing this series. Thanks to our MHTTC leaders, Jennifer Baran-Prall, Dr. Molly Lopez, Dr. Stacey Manser for supporting this idea and bringing this product to life. Thanks to Felicia Benson, our colleague at the National Coordinating Office, for her support and technical guidance on the project. Thanks to the MHTTC administrative team, Kendall Jones and Grace Cruse, for web-based support and title design of the series. Special thanks to Glenn Dembowski and Zatara Lumen for administrative support throughout the project. And finally, much appreciation to Scooter Holiday for our theme music. This has been Talking Beyond Trauma. I am Mordecai Dixon. It is my pleasure to serve. Be well.